Hey guys, how's it going? Preparing here. Now, when I stream Path of Exile, people link me items all the time. I enjoy it. I like seeing cool items that people found. But most of the time, when people link me items, they have either one of two questions. Should I regal this item or should I exalt this item? And I'll explain to you guys what that means if you're not aware. But basically, people want to know what is possible in terms of stats that the item does not already have and what the item excludes based on the current stats. So there is some ambiguity here. Like sometimes one item can be disguised as having some stats or other stats, and you couldn't know the difference. But those are pretty rare. It has mostly to do with an item having a low armor roll with a low like percent stun recovery mod. So it kind of masks it as a hybrid mod. Or in some cases, when it has a rarity mod, you can't tell if it's a prefix or a suffix. But in most cases, it doesn't end up being this way, and you can tell, you can clue yourself in, but in the end, it really comes down to experience. Knowing all the stats, all the possibilities at the top of your head really makes the difference, and playing Path of Exile as much as I do, I am able to do that, but there are some things that I can show you guys, kind of like a rule of thumb, so you can kind of think about when it comes to using these valuable currencies on your items. So the items I was talking about are here. I have a Regal Orb. This upgrades a magical item to a rare item. So for instance, I would use this on an item like this. This item has two pretty good stats. None of them are like really that high, but they're two pretty good stats. And if I use it on this item, it would give it one extra stat that's still available from the stat pool, and then it'll turn into a rare item. So it would be a 3-stat rare. That's the only way you can get a 3-stat rare in this game. Most rares have 4 stats when they drop. And the other thing is, in this game, it kind of follows the Diablo 2 model where it has prefixes and suffixes. There's always a maximum of 3 prefixes and a maximum of 3 suffixes. So it's not like Diablo 3 where you can get any stat you can possibly imagine on any item. And the other item that I mentioned is the Exalted Orb. Enchants a rare item with a new random property. So what a lot of people do, myself included, I get a blue item, and then I can show you guys an example with this necklace. I rolled this necklace with alterations when it was blue, so reforges a blue item to a new blue item. And eventually, after like 100, I got pretty unlucky that day, but I got a 74 life roll with a 28 cold resist roll. I'm like, okay, I could use the cold resist, so let's go for it. Let's regal the item. I regal the item and I got 15 all resist. It's a 3-stat rare. These are 3 very good stats. From this point on, I can choose to use an Exalted Orb to continue adding stats to the amulet that I have. The problem with doing this is that I don't really have, that many chances to get what I want. So this item here, it has life, which is a prefix. It has resists and resist all, which are both suffixes. It has 1 prefix, 2 suffix. The problem with amulets is that the stat pool is so wide that you can't really expect to get anything. When it comes to amulets, you really just have to get a little bit lucky. That's why regaling amulets is a pretty good idea. If you have an amulet that's onyx and you have a high life roll with a not so bad suffix, you can regal it and hope to get lucky like I did and get a pretty decent amulet just like I did. But exalting it past this point doesn't make much sense because this item, maybe it's worth an exalted, but using another exalted on it is very unlikely to increase the wealth of the item to 2 exalteds. Because it is a currency-based game. So for an item like this, I wouldn't recommend exalting. In fact, I wouldn't recommend exalting anything. A lot of people like to buy like weapons, like white ones, for insane prices if they're high item level, and like to craft it themselves. But you're very unlikely to get what you want when it comes to weapons. When it comes to amulets, you can get what you want because all you need is some life and some resists. But when it comes to weapons, I can show you guys here. You need an item like this. You need 3 stacked mods. If you want a high physical weapon, you need something like the one that I have here, 155% physical and 12 to 25 physical damage. And what happens is the physical roll happens first, and then the percent modifiers happens afterwards. So you need a very specific physical roll, and then you need a physical percent roll, and then you need a physical percent roll accuracy hybrid. And each of those 3, all the damage stats are prefixes. So you need 3 very specific prefixes to make a good weapon. You can get it in 2 if you get really lucky, but you always have to invest an insane amount of currency to do so. So what I mean by that is, when you're making a blue item, let's say you get, plus 12 to 25, and you got the attack speed roll. Obviously you wouldn't regal an item if it had this low of a value, but let's say they had higher values, you'd regal it. So your first regal would add 1 stat, and you would essentially be going through the entire mod pool of all the stats the weapon could get, suffix or prefix, and you have to absolutely nail it with a high physical percent damage roll. And that would make it a good weapon. And after that, you'd have to invest 3 Exalteds to perhaps get the hybrid physical damage roll. And already you're a couple hundred alterations in, you're probably a couple of regals in, and you just used at least 3 Exalteds. The weapon, the chance for it to be worth that amount is very low. I don't recommend crafting weapons. You'll end up finding one, trading for one, build up your currency to trade for the end weapon itself, not the crafting mats to get there. When it comes to the other stats, like the elemental rolls, it's the same. Fire damage, lightning damage, cold damage, plus the skills, plus the all skills, or plus the fire skills, plus the physical damage, percent hybrid rolls, all of that is prefix. The only suffix this weapon really needs is an attack speed roll that would make it pretty good for most builds. A lot of the melee builds use resolute technique, meaning you don't need accuracy and you can't crit. That eliminates a lot of the suffix potential. The suffixes include crit damage, and attack speed. They also include things like a huge accuracy roll. So when it comes to 3 or 4 of those, if you get resolute technique, they're worthless. So if I'm a resolute technique character, which I probably will be using a one-handed club, this item does not get any better. Even though this item is quite good for 40, even scaling this up to a high level item, like an endgame item, it wouldn't make sense to exalt it ever, because adding 1 exalted to the investment will never result in a more valuable item in terms of increasing its value by 1 exalted. So you'd never exalt an item like this. But like I said, you can regal an item like this. When it comes to amulets, it's not a bad idea. Maybe you can invest the exalteds if you get a really good roll, but amulets have a really wide mod pool. Some things don't. Some things usually involve armors. So this armor here has a 107 life roll, which is insane. It has dex, it has a resist, and it has thorns. Many items you find are going to look like this, and you're going to be like, wow, I think I should exalt this item. Maybe I should ask Crip if I should exalt this item, This is my train of thought. So what would make this item better is more evasion. But the way you get more evasion is you get a plus evasion roll and then you get a percentage evasion roll. So you're 2 prefixes away from an insane armor. The problem is the life is a prefix and the thorns is a prefix. So the best you can hope for is one of the 2 evasion rolls being the percentage evasion roll. So this item, the most evasion it could ever have is like 1100. And to get that amount, you have to invest 2 exalteds. And would it be worth 2 exalteds? Probably not. So you would never want to exalt an item like this. Similarly, an item like this, a hybrid armor. People like having high life on their energy shield items because they like to be hybrid builds. Understandably, it's still pretty good. So this item has a high life roll, 2 good resists, and a small energy shield roll. 2 resists means 2 suffixes. Life and plus energy shield means 2 prefixes. So you can't really get your energy shield much higher than it already is. You could get like a 120% roll or so. Obviously, it's based on the item level. But the most you can really hope for is about 400 energy shield, which is pretty good, and you get another resist, which is pretty good. But would that item be worth an additional 2 exalteds if it ended up rolling that way? Just about there. But considering all the failed possibilities, you'd never exalt this item. We have another example here of things you shouldn't exalt. This is an astral plate. It has the plus armor roll, which is really good if you combine it with a percent armor roll. It has the plus life, which is also a prefix, 2 resists, which are the 2 suffixes, and thorns, which is a prefix. Meaning you can never get a percent armor roll on this item. Meaning the most armor this item will ever have is about 600 and 40, 50. So never exalt this item. you may want another resist, but it's not going to be worth the overall value. Boots are a little bit curious because, as you've seen, most items come from stacking prefixes, and the prefixes typically include a life roll combined with 2 armor-based modifications. So you'd have, evasion plus and then evasion percent, or armor plus or armor percent combined, something like that. But when it comes to boots, it's even harder to do that because boots, the most important stat on them is typically run speed. So run speed is also a prefix. So this item here has 66 life, run speed, mana, and rarity. So this is a very interesting item because it highlights things that can be exclusive. As I mentioned, rarity can be a prefix or a suffix, but we're clued into this item because life is a prefix, mana is a prefix, and movement speed is a prefix. Therefore, the rarity is a suffix. So you can never get any more armor or any more energy shield, or for whatever reason, if you wanted thorns, you couldn't get any of that on this item. So if you're expecting it, you wouldn't exalt it. But honestly, looking at that item, you wouldn't exalt it anyway. So that's kind of how it works. It can be very complicated. It's something you have to get used to. If you keep playing Path of Exile, if you enjoy it, you'll essentially get the hang of it pretty quick. And I hope you guys don't waste your currencies. Save that shit up and trade for the stuff you need. That's how you get rich in this game over a long period of time, not so much by crafting your own items and buying the bases. So, hope you guys learned something, and I'll see you guys tomorrow.